I'm Winter Lake with a broadcast of the Pentacle-Hours show. We're going to have a philosophical discussion on the issues at hand in our current situation of reality. It will be a free form. That means it may start at one angle, direction, ideology, and then swing to the others. This isn't per se an argument of right or wrong or an attack issue, although I do have certain stances that I won't come from, and I'm sure other individuals in the forum hold their stance and will speak their own mind. So as we begin, I will ask a few questions and then we will have other questions. So do you think that the current economy or situation involving with our government is corrupt?
Hi, my name's Mike, and yeah, it's corrupt in form of system as well. How they say their playing field or their rules, they don't even play by their own rules. Yeah, it's way corrupt. Maybe part of human nature and the corruptness based on it, but yeah, it's a lot of self-centered stuff going on. Very corrupt.
It could very well be a plan in the big picture that these corrupt individuals, their being corrupt, is being used as a tool to infiltrate this planet Earth.
Well, I mean, you two are being very vague. I mean, corruption of a system or an ideology or a personage, I mean, you need some sort of system in order to maintain order. There is a lot of other variables with that, but in seeing how the economy and the money is in our current state of collapse, I think sooner or later the dumbing down of reality and society is going to catch up with us. I do think mankind is inherently evil and they're evolving into their own nature. And if there were a Holocaust or in the corruption and the collapse of the system, that mankind would be at each other's throats. Altruism is a failed state of being, as we have seen just recently in the apocalypse of the hurricane over the Philippines that showed how quickly even a religiously ideologue society can begin to knife and shoot each other over a piece of bread.
There's a lot to answer to there. But I don't think altruism is... I think human nature has both altruism as well as selfishness, or the self-centeredness at its, within us. It's what we choose to gravitate to or try for. But fear can drive a lot of not so good things to happen. It takes a lot of diligence and a lot of will to not be taken by fear and to think outside of our own personal needs, and maybe it's enlightened self-interest, or maybe it's just more of a purist altruism. I think most altruism is born out of self-interest, enlightened self-interest. However, I don't know. We talked a little bit about collapse. I do think collapse is going to happen within our lifetime, whether it's economic driven, that's going to drive an agricultural, environmental collapse, or vice versa. It's probably going to be more of an environmental. It's what's happening now. We are experiencing environmental collapse now, as well as agricultural collapse. We're more and more drought as the planet heats up, as we put more and more hydrocarbons, as well as other greenhouse gases like methane into the atmosphere. We are driving a industry-based collapse to occur. Is that by design? Well, some people might say it is. Same thing with our food systems and genetically modified organisms and other things. A lot of industry does not want us to rely on a sustainable natural ecosystem that we've used for thousands and thousands, for millennia. They want an industry-based one so they can centralize the power, centralize economics for their benefit. And whether that is an agenda that fits with maybe someone from not Earth, who knows? That's an interesting concept as well. A segue.
So back to the question about, are we inherently evil, or is there some good in us? What would be the advantage of us having good in us? If I help somebody else out, it generally feels good to do that. And I think that's the thing that allows us to be good, is relating to another individual. Now in our society and culture, we're being more and more divided. So we may discriminate and see some others that we dislike less human than us. There's that. And there's also the not having a direct connection to the things that we do. It's with the food supply or buying diamonds, for example. There's a huge religion with just diamonds and marriage. I, on the other hand, prefer gemstones. I think they have more meaning and consequently are a lot more affordable. But it's I think we're just blind into oblivion with the stuff that we do. If we knew exactly what we were doing and what that was causing in the world, we might be able to have a better world. I don't know. What do you think, Lake?
Well, as overpopulation begins to take its toll, if we reach 11 billion people within a few years, things will be considerably different. Mass extermination events will probably begin to take place, and it will begin in the third world more than whatever definition of a first world is. It goes to the idea that there is a grand scheme, but really there's not. The grand scheme is a generalized reality that strong and fittest are in clashes, that you have the rich and the poor, that you have the powered and the powerless, and I think this is what's going to sustain or create our reality in the future. It's dystopian and it's apocalyptic, but I think it's an inevitability. By 2020, it'll probably be an assurity. As the population explodes, extermination events are going to be widespread. The people that are in power will do a lot to maintain their power, either through corporate handling or through their own agenda driven by survival. The philosophy has been laid down throughout the past 2,000 years, and there's different resurgences in different ways this will manifest. The difference now in the 21st century is that all of the tools are a lot bigger, that the weapons are a lot stronger, that the machinations of deceit and the turning and the spinning of the media tool is a lot more controlled. In this issuance, it is for people to realize that steps can be taken for their own individual freedom to be maintained. This is where it's going to be a whole collapse in and of itself, away from just the reality of we are running out of food and we have ruined our environment. It's going to be we are going to come after each other. We are going to do this in the most methodical ways, and it's going to be very destructive. Why this is, it goes to my argument of the mankind not being true to itself, not realizing what it is and how it evolves as a creature. I do think it is inherently satanic, and as it evolves, it will reveal its true beast, its nature as it progresses unto its apocalyptic conclusion. Is it a chastisement of its own nature? Is it self-cruelty for ruin? Is it the weakness usurped for the strong? Probably. Is it might is right? Probably. The creatures or beings in power are the ones that dictate what's right or wrong. It has nothing to do with what really right or wrong is. These are very arbitrary arguments. What is one man's God is another man's devil. But as we progress into the future, these things will become much more defined. And I do think that a lot of sheeple stupidity is going on and not enough action is going on in order to liberate one's consciousness and to understand things. In a lot of old witchcraft themata, they would like to say that do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. However, it is improbable to do whatever you want without hurting or disturbing someone else. So the dictum doesn't hold up. And in the future, that is what's going to be the rule of law for those that are in power. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. This is what I want. I have the power to do it, and you either do it or you're going to get out of the way. You're going to be Monsanto'd or fracked or destroyed, and you're going to be eliminated. And it's going to be the third world to start first. And it's going to come from, regimes such as China and dystopian agendas that they're carrying currently. Just the gripping and the holding on of power. And it'll be interesting as it develops by 2020.
Wow. What I wanted to respond to was the idea of evil. I don't tend to use those kind of terms, although I use self-centeredness and human centrism and other things that might have some equitable concepts there. I really do believe in altruism, that we are social animals. A lot of what we're able to do comes out of our ability to work and cooperate and have commonality with others. I don't think that we have a lot of individualism in us, but it is balanced with will and wanting to work with others. It's a balance. It's kind of like chi, the positive and negative chi, or if you will, chaos and order. It's that there is balance in the world. I'm thinking of fractals now, but there, the balance of order and disorder. So I'm going to try not to get too abstract here, but altruism, comes out of a desire to work with others, and I think that still exists. As if it's need to argue it. Just look out the window. We work with each other. We have commonalities with each other. That is what I would like to see built on. I do think, going back to the idea of collapse and stuff, that will happen in our lifetimes. I'm a pretty firm believer in it. We can't sustain what we are doing unless there's radical system change, both in either capitalism and or the idea of democracy and egalitarianism and things like that. Unless major things change, we're going to see major collapses. In whether it's good or not, that could be subjective. Hopefully, there'll be less suffering as that occurs. However, I'm not one of those who, like the Derek Jensen ideology type folks, who want to push it over the edge to maybe avert it happening even worse. The balloon floating even higher and the crash happening even worse than it could. I'm not into those ideas. However, what I am into is surviving collapse. What we should be doing to prepare for that, I'm not sure we should be doing anything special. I'm already wanting to live off the grid and be self-sustaining with or without collapse. But if there is collapse, if you are self-reliant, you're going to have a better chance. Also, working, going back to this idea of sociology or working with others, if you work well, better, and have decent relationships with your neighbors as opposed to fear, we are probably going to be doing better in times of stress. So we all have fear in us. We all have also great love in us. It's a balance of both. But if we were able to work on some of the more functional things as opposed to dysfunctional, we probably do better. If so, the collapse does occur. So.
So just say that you're growing up on a farm and there's a little piggy, pink piggy, nice curly tail. So I'm the thing you got to do if you could actually kill that little creature is not to get attached to it. Life is full and everywhere, and we all have the capacity to feel empathy for other living creatures. Now, when you bring that to the dividing and disconnect that we might have to our fellow humans or a particular type of human, we may have less respect for that particular human or sector of humans. And I think a lot of that is going on right now. Different types of humans are being dehumanized. And that's kind of the same thing that happened with the Jews and other considered unfit humans during the Nazi movement. And I don't know, I think we need to be careful of that, although there is this idea that the planet is getting overpopulated. So you're saying that it's going to be the third world countries that are going to go first, and they'll be set up as a natural cause of being wiped out. I don't think we're going to go over there and purposely bomb innocent people. I think the weather and them not being able to cope with the intensity of the changes on the earth, that they will perish. It seems like the power keepers are going to want to keep their power. And with power comes control, and I think one of the indicators of evil is control. When you try to control a system of people or any type of system, you're essentially trying to play God. And by doing so, when you control some system, you're going to be stepping over somebody else's feet and doing so, whether you are aware of it or not.
Yes, I mean, it is getting to the point where you can't walk down the street and not step on someone, or not some action that is done as a causality event on someone else's life. As we are a global mind and a global culture, we are beginning to see the beginnings of this eradication of the weak against the strong. True, the philosophy of Nietzsche and all these others had preached about it, but they were maniacal in the contempt that it was an individually based aspect brought on by deliberate action. What's occurring now is that as we have segmented ourselves off into a demographer's failure, we have created the borders and borderlands where eradication will begin first. If you have 11 billion people, it will eradicate down to 8, and then it will eradicate down to 5, because the collapse would be assured, and the violence that will come will be much more destructive than in the previous 5,000 years of our existence. So as these nuclear events or toxic events or global warming events and 100-year weather storms happen on a daily basis, it will take a toll on our populace and on our humanity. This is just being done on the discursal inversion of society in general. Humanity is living in a very inverted type of reality and not even realizing how destructive they are. We have about 450 million people in the United States. Even if we were to add another 50 million people in dealing with what is known as maybe an immigration issue, but really the toll came out to about 375 million. Neither here nor there, just looking at the sheer scope that on the skirts of the borders of the United States, you would have 6,500 million other individuals that will feel the brunt of the blow first. So these kind of extermination events, as they progress, will be consolatorily evil, and they will begin in the third world country. We do live under the conditioning tools and the law of order that is sustained in our current state of mind, in our current state of government, in our house, in our reality. Once the conditioning tools and law is removed, mankind will be at each other's throats, and the knives will be very sharp, and the nuclear weapons will be very powerful. It will only take one or two of these events to create a knee-jerk reaction of desolation and destruction that will reap itself throughout the entirety of the earth. But it will begin in the smaller places first, and then possibly through other terroristic events into our utopian reality, which will in turn create a dystopian collapse. This will possibly or more probably happen due to not happen or probably occur due probably by the time of about 2020. In my remote viewing experience, it could be a few years in the lay time, but about at that time we will begin to see the death pangs of our reality and our society.
I don't know how to follow that. That was dark. It could be a lot of that dark stuff does occur, although just like everything else, there's always, I think looking at things that darkly, we're ignoring a lot of the good stuff in the world as well. So I'm going to keep it simple and pass it on here.
Yeah, there is a possibility of a good outcome with this, and it is something that we could hope for, that there's a light at the end of this. However, a very troubling issue that we're facing is the issue of fracking, and Laake here seems to think that fracking is even a bigger issue than the nuclear issue, because you could contain the uranium. However, yeah. So why is fracking a bigger issue than the nuclear issue?
The Earth is permeated by cosmic and radiation rays every second of its existence. Radiation is the essential fabric of our planet, and it actually keeps us in our state of reality as we speak. In fracking, we are drilling in miles and miles into our planet, and the way that it is occurring, the fracturing of our planet, where it is being fractured on the certain layers and the levels that it's being utilized, targeting certain areas that have the gas, also bring about methane and other destructive, very harmful things to the air and to the ozone. If you release enough of the methane into the environment, it will eat the ozone layer within a summer. We will have an amazing event coming from space as well as from the Earth. We will become a planet very similar like Mars, and it would happen overnight. Fracking, and as it is grown and will grow to a scale that is beyond reality, as China is getting into it and developing, we will begin to shake and rock this planet apart. And in doing so, we will rock and destroy our ozone layer reality. And we will watch it one day go all the way across the sky, and it will just burn this whole civilization from existence.
Does this even make sense among the people that have initiative to depopulate the Earth? Does it make sense to them?
In my opinion, I don't know if there are people that are looking to actually depopulate the Earth. I think they are just stuck on stupid and one agenda to fill the bank account with as much money as they can for themselves, and they're so driven into a materialist reality. But they should, whoever they are, need to look at this event with much more serious situation-minded idea. Fracking is just a complete ridiculous experiment. Its very cost expenditure is outrageous. They could do something with a fraction of the cost and develop technology that people would pay for, and they could still make money. But this is affecting the very fabric and the heart of our life existence, our planet Earth, and it is going to bring about the destruction of mankind. If enough methane is released into the environment in combination with the tonnage of carbon dioxide that is released in the environment, it will not have the ability to recover. It will become as a wasteland as Mars. And if you look at Mars, this same event happened on Mars a long time ago, as they have speculated and found on the rocks that have landed here from asteroids. Clearly, from just a scientific, logistical standpoint, it is filled with methane and is filled with carbon dioxide. They have ascertained that that is what has occurred with Mars, that there was a serious cosmological event combined with an event that occurred on that planet, like volcanoes on a massive scale, that released an immense amount of carbon dioxide and methane into the air in combination, which wiped out their entire totality ozone that ever existed there. And that's why you have a red wasteland.
That brings up the question about the seed bank that's in Antarctica. What are they preparing for a big cataclysm? And with the GMO foods and everything, the seeds in the seed bank are purely natural, not GMO. And it seems like the World Health Organization and where all the food is going to come in the event of a disaster is all going to be formulated for what?
The methane events and the natural occurrences have happened before. They'll happen again. There is absorption factors with that. What makes it different this time around is the car, the automobile, the tonnage of carbon dioxide that is being released on a daily basis throughout the planet. And I'm not really an activist. I just see how this thing is going to unwrap. And as it unwraps, it's going to affect the sky. It's going to affect the ozone. It's going to work in tandem, and it's going to bring destruction down upon the planet when we have no more air to breathe, when it becomes a toxic wasteland. Our life will be worthless. Food will not grow. Animals will die. This planet will go into the next phase, which will be more like Mars, and maybe possibly whatever creature can adjust to that type of existence in a methane carbon dioxide wasteland.
I guess the only way that this could ever make any sense, and I can't believe that the rulers would be in oblivion to this, is to harvest living deep under the earth.
There is no living deep under the earth. The earth is a solid state. It's a solid state. You can't do it. It's a solid state. Hence, there's no drilling that needs to be done there. You know, the National Socialists believed in hollow earth theory. For about 3 years they explored they explored with exponential amount of power and forces and monies through Antarctica, throughout the entirety of the globe. And even though in their hollow earth, and they were trying to find that, they were trying to find some utopia within, it did not exist. They came to the same conclusion. Horbinger, who was the grand Nazi scientist, came to the conclusion that the earth is a tamperless hard shell, the same as it is now, with different layers, with a core, with a molten core that causes an electromagnetic field that keeps us on the ground. The electromagnetic field goes from the north to the south. It spurns around the entire globe. It's a massive event, and it keeps spinning and spinning at an ultra amazing speed that you cannot even fathom as we sit here. It sustains our existence, and if we begin to tamper with that, we begin to destroy ourselves. And as it progresses, now 1 or 2 events, now they've got 10 events, then you've got 25 events, now you have 1,000 events, you have 5,000 events where you're digging in certain areas, shaling out, pumping in massive tons of water. You're unleashing the methane, which is a combination with where this natural gas exists. So you're going right to these deposits, and you're doing them on grand scales. Then you have natural events like the volcanoes, or you have events like this methane issue up in Russia that's on meltdown. these things in combination with the carbon dioxide, and see, they don't address it. It's always one or the other. But you have to, in combination, Jim, from just a chemical standpoint, it means death.
So I guess the only way to escape this is to infect another planet.
Well, I mean, if we could go to another reality, I mean, sure. I mean, if we could get off this rock by that time, or if we could lessen our load, but we're still drilling in the earth 4 miles to blast water into it. We're Neanderthals. Our technology is a joke. What, we're doing that? We're smart. Why aren't we developing something?
If there are extraterrestrials amongst us and they have any benevolence to them, they won't let us off this rock.
That's a good point. They don't want us to infest another perfectly bright planet.
No, we're just a television show for them.
Although we could be being influenced by malevolent beings, and maybe we are hybrids of malevolent beings. So I guess if we are that, then we all have internal conflicts within ourselves.
Well, with that, we have had a philosophical discussion. You've heard me on my dystopian rants, and we've discussed an altruism aspect with Mike, and another kind of in between from our effervescent Jason. And appreciate you listening. This is the Pentacle-Hours with a philosophical discussion on good and evil.